The train was already breaking apart at high speed, sparks flying, metal grinding against the tracks, and no one stopped it. A fatal update was already in motion. A loose piece was being dragged violently against the structure. The sound was wrong, out of place. But inside the train, no one understood what was happening because everything still felt normal. But it wasn't. The disaster had already begun because of a detail. Small, almost invisible. The detail they ignored turned into a nightmare. A detail that slipped through an entire system, through an entire structure, through every protocol, and no one saw it, or almost no one, because on that train, one single person noticed. But by then, it was already too late. What was happening underneath could no longer be stopped. It was one of the most advanced trains in the world. The InterCity Express, a symbol of German engineering, fast, silent, reliable, compared to the comfort of an airplane, but running on rails. For many people, it wasn't just transportation. It was an experience, a standard, something you stepped into without thinking twice. Part of a massive high-speed network crossing Germany every day, connecting entire cities in just a few hours. Trains that passed through urban areas at incredible speeds. Speeds that didn't even seem possible. And still, everything always felt under control. For years, without a single fatal accident. No history that raised concern. No reason to doubt it. A system people trusted, automatically. And that's exactly why no one notices when something starts to go wrong. That morning, the train had left Munich heading to Hamburg, a journey of over 800 kilometers across the country, capacity for around 800 passengers. On that day, more than 280 people were on board, families, executives, children, some sleeping, others working, some just staring out the window, watching the world pass by too fast to follow. A normal trip, everything working as usual, until a sound appears, short, metallic, wrong. In the first car, a passenger notices. At first, it seems small, almost insignificant, but it wasn't. And then it happens. A piece of metal breaks through the floor of the train and shoots violently between two seats, between a child and her mother, by inches, a second, maybe less, but enough. That wasn't just any object, it was part of the train itself, and in that moment, without anyone knowing, the train was already failing. The man reacts immediately. He pulls his family away without hesitation and moves through the cars until he finds a crew member. Some people heard the sound, a sharp metallic noise, but no one understood what it meant. No one realized how serious the situation really was. Some kept reading, others kept talking. Everything still felt like a normal trip, and that's the most dangerous moment, when something has already gone wrong, but everything still looks normal. He finds a crew member and explains what just happened in the car he came from, describing the noise, the metal tearing through the floor, and the obvious danger. The crew member decides to go back with him to check the situation. They move quickly back to the car where the metal piece is still lodged between the seats. But there's a problem. At that moment, they couldn't just stop the train. Under company protocols at the time, the emergency brake could not be activated without first verifying what was actually happening. They had to confirm, understand, evaluate the situation, and that takes time. Time they didn't have, and while that happens, the train keeps going at high speed without stopping, and underneath, something worse was already happening. Months earlier, the signs were already there. Vibrations, noises, complaints. In the restaurant car, the signs were already there. Glasses shaking, plates vibrating. The train wasn't as stable as it should have been, and that bothered people, because that train was designed to be perfect, silent, smooth, stable. But no one imagined that this was the beginning of something bigger. Still, something wasn't right. Something had already started to wear down. Slowly, quietly, without drawing enough attention. And that's the most dangerous kind of problem. The one that doesn't stop the system. It just keeps going, failing silently. And even with signs, with vibrations, with warnings, the train kept operating as if nothing was wrong. During inspections, the problem wasn't identified in time, or simply wasn't treated with the seriousness it required. And on that day, everything finally gave in. Now, part of the train was loose, trapped, being dragged along the tracks at high speed. And this doesn't happen all at once. It happens over kilometers, over minutes, long enough for everything to spiral out of control. Later, investigators would discover something disturbing. Nearly 6 kilometers before the crash site, there were already marks on the tracks, deep scratches, sparks, metal being torn away. The train had already been destroying itself long before anyone realized, and even then, the train keeps going until the piece hits the rail and rips part of it out. A chunk of metal is thrown upward. It was part of the track itself. It pierces the train, tears through another car. Now it's no longer a failure, it's a chain reaction. The train is being destroyed from the inside out, and still, it keeps going. Ahead, there is a track switch, a system that allows the train to move from one track to another, and that's exactly where everything collapses, because that piece of metal being dragged underneath the train hits this mechanism. It strikes the structure that guides the rails, and on impact, forces it into the wrong position. In other words, it changes the path of the train. And in that moment, something impossible happens. The front of the train continues on the main track, while the rear cars are pulled in a different direction. The train starts being pulled in 2 directions at once. At first, it's subtle, almost unnoticeable. But then, the train begins to violently shake. Now everyone feels it. Now it can't be ignored. The passenger who saw it first doesn't need to warn anyone anymore. Now everyone knows. But it's too late. The train has lost alignment. And when a high-speed train loses alignment, it doesn't stop. It enters a path with no return. Ahead, a bridge, heavy, immovable, and in that moment, it was irreversible. There was nothing left that could be done.